Hello students, today we'll be talking about measuring your financial health and making a plan. Like we discussed in the last class, your financial health is all about your financial well-being. How are you faring financially? So this chapter especially is going to like highlight or pinpoint the importance of good record keeping, because it's with the record that you have kept that you'll be able to actually know if you are doing well financially or not. So basically, we're going to learn about how to calculate your level of net worth or wealth using a balance sheet. Then we'll analyze where your money comes from and where it goes in terms of the income statement. Then we'll further try to use ratios to identify your financial strengths and weaknesses. Apart from that, we'll set a record keeping system to track your income. Then we'll implement financial plan or budgets that will provide for the level of savings. And lastly, we'll try to decide if a professional financial planner will play a role in your financial affairs at the end of the day. So, like we said, that we're going to talk about financial health. To start with, we need to know where does all your money go. If you really want to measure your financial status, the first thing to know is that, okay, apart from knowing your source of income, knowing where money comes from, you need to know where all your money goes, because there is a relationship between what you earn and what you actually spend as well. So planning and budgeting requires control. When you're planning, when you're budgeting, you need to control all this so that you will be able to, of course, you cannot spend more than what you have. So it depends on what you're going to spend, actually depends on what you are actually earning as income. Then you also try to evaluate your financial health. Like I mentioned, we'll try to look at your financial statements in terms of maybe your balance sheet or your income and expenditure statement. So you try to get a record of all these things, where your money comes from, the total money you get, and then how you spend them. So from there, you now develop a plan of action. How do you want your future to be financially? What else? What other plans do you have in future for your finances in terms of your income as well as your expenditure pattern? So here is the budgeting and planning process. You have to evaluate your financial health and then develop a plan of action like I mentioned earlier. So the first step, as you can see on the slide, is to evaluate your financial health. Okay, how well are you faring? What are you, what are you, where from what sources are you getting this money from or income from? So the first thing is to prepare a personal balance sheet. We'll see examples in a subsequent slide. You prepare a balance sheet for yourself where you highlight your assets as well as your liabilities and you find your net worth. All right. Thereafter, you determine what you are worth. What are you actually worth? What are your, what are your, assets? What are you actually worth? Then you use ratio. We're going to talk about ratios as well, where you compare these figures or digits using this book of accounts that I've mentioned. Then you try to determine where your money comes from and where it goes. I've mentioned those sources, okay? The money you earn as well as where you spend them. To what sources do you also spend them? Then the next step for you is to define your financial goals, because as individuals we have different financial goals. You identify what you are saving for. Okay, what I'm saving for might be different from what you are saving from. So it's very, very important to also identify what you are saving for, as well as how much you will need to save for that particular course, right? Even if we are saving for the same purpose, we might have different options. We might have the basic, we might have the premium, we might have the, so, and it depends on the options that you want to go for that will determine the cost, one, and then how you even want to save towards it. So even when your financial goal might even be similar to the second or the next person, it's very, very possible that how much you want to save towards achieving those might vary depending on the other expenditure patterns too and some other factors. Then moving ahead, the next step is to develop a plan of action. All right, you make your spending conform with your budget goals. You already have your goals, you've written them down, you want to achieve this, you want to achieve that, and then financially you've attached some monetary values to them. And now the next thing is for you to make sure that you go in line with your plan. Otherwise, you'll be working out of plan and it's going to affect the outcome at the end of the day. So after that, you implement your plan. Just do it. Go about it the way you have planned it and then see what happens. After this stage, you can now review your progress. Is your plan working according to expectation, or is the outcome according to what you have planned? And then you might want to reevaluate it. You might want to review your plan in case it doesn't conform with your expectations. So these are the budgeting and planning process. Now, using a balance sheet to measure your wealth, like I mentioned, a balance sheet is going to, show your own status, your financial status at a particular time. So it's more or less like a snapshot of your financial statement. You look at like a summary of what you are worth, both in terms of the assets and in terms of liabilities. So at the end of the day, you see both of them. You see the assets that you own; those are the things that belong to you, all right, or the liabilities that you owe as well, okay. And then at the end of the day, you know your net worth or your equity by the time you find the difference between the two. That's the assets and your liability. So this is an example of a personal balance sheet. You have the assets, that is what you own. What belongs to you is what you own. An example of that is maybe monetary assets like your bank account. Whatever you have in your bank account belongs to you. Your investments, all right, we're still going to discuss about that later. Your retirement plan also, it belongs to you, because by the time you retire, you have access to all those. And then your housing, all right, automobiles, personal properties, the properties that belong to you personally, and then other forms of assets. So an addition of all these, assuming we want to assign value to all of them now, their values will be here, and at the end of the day, your total assets will be the addition of all these assets, all these forms of assets from A to G. So that is what will give you your asset, which is H. So you have the value here. Okay, we're still going to find a worksheet to practice that. Then you will talk about your liabilities. Your liabilities are debt. These are what you owe. All right, your assets are what you own, while your liabilities are what you owe. So it can be divided into two: the current debt as well as the long-term debt. The current debt are usually those that are within a year, within the span of a year. For example, maybe your current bills that you pay monthly, or maybe quarterly, or things like that. And then your credit card debits, your credit card debts. So these are examples of your current debt. The long-term debt are, for a longer period of time. So for example, you have your housing, maybe you are paying, allowances on your housing for a period of time. The automobile loans, you get a car loan, so you have to pay these maybe monthly, usually monthly. So it's part of your long-term debt. Other debts are also involved. So depending on your spending pattern, you may have other forms of debt. And then your total debt will be an addition of all these that you have that we've talked about. All right, that is your total debt that you add from I until M, I until N. So you have your current debt, which involves your current bills, and then the J, which is the credit card, and then the K, housing, automobile, and then other debt. So all this from here to here will be added to give us the total liabilities here. So at the end of the day, you can find your net worth. You know what you are worth by subtracting the total debt from your total assets. Those like we have here, these are your total debt. You have the value here from your assets. So which is basically this H. This H here, the value that we derive here, the value we derive for H here, minus the value we derive for N here. So your H minus N is going to give us your net worth at the end of the day. So this is simply how to calculate your balance sheet. This is how to evaluate yourself using your personal balance sheet. All you need to do is to get all your assets, add them together, get all your liabilities, both current and long term, then add them together, and then subtract your liabilities from your assets for you to get your net worth. what you own, like I mentioned, are your assets. These are assets and your possessions that you, I mean, even if you owe money, these things belong to you. For example, the housing that we talked about, right? When you get a housing on a lease basis that you have to maybe pay over time, or maybe a housing loan or something like that you pay over time. The house is yours, all right, even though you are still paying on them. So assets are your possessions. Even if you owe money on them, they are still your possessions at the end of the day. So you list the assets using their fair market value. So you use the fair market value, and all values must be current. Don't use the old values for them when you are calculating your assets. All right. So this your asset is actually what you own. You also have a monetary asset, which could be in the form of cash or liquid assets. All right. Apart from these properties that we're talking about, apart from maybe houses or other properties, you have monetary assets too, which could be in the form of cash or your liquid assets. And then you have investments. You might have invested in some maybe bonds, shares and so on and so forth. Even your retirement plan is still part of your asset, because by the time you retire, then it becomes yours. All right. Then you can talk about tangible assets, which are physical assets, such as an house, like I mentioned earlier, your furniture, your vehicle, your jewelry, your collectibles. All these are parts of your assets. They are what you own. They are what belongs to you. So even if you are still paying money on them, the fact is that they are assets to you because they belong to you. The next are liabilities. All right, these are what we've explained in the previous slide. Actually, liabilities are simply what you owe, that you have to pay, that you have to repay. They are debts. Actually, liability is a debt that must be repaid in the future. So current liabilities must be paid off within the next 1 year. Like I mentioned, you have so many kinds of current liabilities. Some may be monthly or weekly or whatever, quarterly, but usually they are within a year. That's why they are current. Long-term liabilities they can't due beyond the year. They are spread over several years or many years. So you list only the unpaid balances. The ones that you have paid are no longer your liabilities. For example, you have a plan to pay for housing over 5 years. So when you are, treating your current either balance sheet or income statement, you use the values of the unpaid, the ones that are left. So that is still your liabilities. The ones that you have paid are gone and they are no longer liabilities. So liabilities are basically what you owe at a particular period of time. So examples are current bills. For example, your utility bills, you want to pay for insurance, you want to pay your utility bills, including maybe electricity, water, sewage, and so on and so forth. Then you have the insurance premiums that you have to pay, your credit card balances, and so on and so forth. And then long-term liability, like I said, they span over a longer period of time. For example, your home, your car loan, your student loan that you have to pay over specific number of years. Other loans include other installment loans, bank loans, insurance policy loans, and so on and so forth. So these are examples of liabilities that people do as individuals that we do owe. All right, so they are just examples. Then your net worth, like I mentioned, is the measure of your wealth. It's your net worth now that is going to tell us your own worth, your financial health, whether you are healthy or financially or not. So at the end of the day, by the time you list your assets and you list your liabilities, both the current and the long term, and you find the difference between the two, what you're going to get is your net worth. That's what we have here, net worth, which is your total assets minus your total debt. Don't forget that your debts are your liabilities. So if your liabilities are greater than your assets, then you have a negative net worth, and you are declared as being insolvent, or you can be described as being insolvent. But if your liabilities are less than your assets, then you can be described as having a positive net worth or being financially healthy. You should also know that a good level of net worth depends on your goals and your place in the financial life cycle. So this is an example of a balance sheet for Louis and Larry as at December 2014. reporting, you see that these are the form of monetary assets. Don't forget that we discussed about the different forms of assets and liabilities. So it has monetary asset. Here is the value, and then investment, right, in mutual fund, individual stocks and bond, investments in real estate, and so on and so forth. So all these are added together, right? So they are still assets, right? Both A and B are still assets. Then the retirement plan also, we mentioned it, okay? So that is the C, that's the total retirement plan is C. So for assets, we now have A, B, C. Let's look at the housing also. Primary residence and timeshares, condo, and second home. All this will total give us D. So we have A, B, C, D, and then automobiles, personal property, other assets, and then the total assets, which is an addition of all what we have from A to G. So that is the total assets, which is 300,190. So here are the bills. Here are the liabilities for the current bills, unpaid balance. You have the credit card balance, and then the housing loans. Even though we've categorized the housing under the assets, the loan still has to be paid. So he is going to take care of this one too in the balance sheet. So automobile loan as well. Other debts, including college loan or other kinds of loan. Then the total debt is what we have here, 175. The total asset, don't forget in the previous slide that we found was 300,190, and then the total debt or liability is 175,500. So by the time you find the net, that's the asset minus the liability, then you get the net worth, which is 124,690. So that's the difference between the two. That's the difference between the asset and liability. Using an income statement to trace your money. Your income statement is also going to give you a financial picture of your status, or a picture of your financial status. So it's like a financial motion picture. It actually tells you where your money has come from and where it has gone over some period of time. All right. It tells you how much you have received as income, as well as how much you have spent as expenditure. So it tells you where your money has come from and where it has gone over a period. Income and expenditure, by the time you just oppose the difference between your income and your expenditure, you are going to get what we call the net income statement. At times, it could be on cash basis, which is based on your cash flows, the amount coming in and going out, and as well as your income and expenses over a given period of time. So here is a simplified income statement. Your take-home pay, which is your total income minus your taxes. All right, let's call it disposable income. It's also called disposable income, because from your income you're still going to pay taxes. So by the time you deduct your taxes from your total income, then you get what we call your income after tax, all right, or your take-home pay. So this is what is actually accessible to you. This one is not totally accessible to you until the taxes have been deducted, all right, until you take care of this one before you now have what actually belongs to you that you can't spend. That's your take-home pay. Now you can now find all your living expenses, add all your living expenses, and some of them include your housing expenditure, your food expenditure, clothing and personal care expenditures, transportation. Like this one goes to the basic level, the income statement compared to your balance sheets, which only talks about your assets and liabilities. For the income statement, it goes to everything about your spending details, as well as your income. So your total medical expenditure, insurance expenditure, other expenditure, living expenditure, and so on and so forth. So by the time you add all these living expenses, then you'll be having your total living expenditure. So at the end of the day, your take-home pay minus your living expenditure will give you the status of your income available for savings. All right, you have your income available for savings because as human beings, all these expenses need to be incurred. There is no way you'll be alive that you not eat. You need to eat, you need to, be under a shelter, you need to clothe yourself, you need to cover your body, you need to, seek medical attention when you need such, and so on and so forth. So all these are living expenses which are very, very necessary. So by the time you deduct these living expenses from your take-home pay, you have what we call the income that is available for savings and investments. Depending on how you want to spend the remaining money, you might want to save some of it and invest the other parts. So where your money comes from, this is basically your income. All right, this is your income cash flow. So at times, or most times, income comes from wages, salary, which is the monthly. Wages could be hourly or weekly based, depending on where you work. Then the salary, which is usually monthly. Bonuses, tips. Bonuses could be maybe some do receive theirs at the end of the year, some quarterly or things like that, or annually, or maybe half yearly, or even quarterly, or bonuses from other sources as well. Some do receive tips, maybe for different reasons, and then commissions as well. All these are few examples. Other sources include family income, right? Government payments, maybe to veterans, or welfare for people that are under government care, as well as your investment income from your investments. So all these are sources from which people or individuals can get money. So you subtract federal, state, social security taxes from your earnings to calculate your take-home pay. Don't forget that I mentioned it before, that you have to subtract taxes from your income for you to be able to ascertain your take-home pay. For expenditure, it actually means where your money goes, like I mentioned before. So it's the cash transactions may not leave a paper trail, and you need to really take note of your cash transactions. They can be variable or fixed expenditures. Some are variable, which depends on number of factors, all right, while some are fixed. For example, maybe your house rent may be fixed. Some may vary, maybe feeding, for example. It may depend on whether maybe the number of family members. It may even depend on perhaps maybe you are expecting a visitor or a guest for a while, and that will stay with you maybe for a period of time. So all these might change your expenditure pattern at times. So at times some of this expenditure might be variable, while some might be fixed. For example, even in electricity bill will also depend on how much electricity you use, okay, in terms of the appliances, or maybe the appliances that you use. There are times you should try to take control over your expenditures by actually monitoring and taking a good record, all right, keeping a good record of your expenditure. So your expenditure basically is where your money goes, while your income is where your money comes from. So this is just an example of how Americans spend their money in 2013. That is what we have on the left hand side here, this very particular image, while the next one is the one next to it. This one is the average annual expenditure of the consumer units as at 2021. So you may just want to look and compare both of them. So this is an example of the personal income statement of this and that. Previously, we had an example of a balance sheet. So now we want to see or look at an example of an income statement. So for income, you have wages and salaries. Those are the major sources of income generally, apart from all those bonuses and other things that were mentioned. So wage earner 1 and wage earner 2. The first one is 67, the second one is 12. So we have a total of this. Then other sources of income, which include interest, dividend, royalties, and other sources. So all these total up to $70,220. Now we have the taxes, all right? Federal income and social security tax, and then the state income tax. So by the time you add the taxes, you have the total income taxes here amounting to 13,710. So this is the take-home pay. This is the take-home pay. A minus B, that's the income minus the expenditure. Okay, the income minus the taxes. All right. Before we now go to the expenditure, so income minus the taxes is going to give you your take-home pay. Now we can now talk about the expenses in terms of maybe rent, mortgage payments, utility maintenance, and so on. We also have food and supply, restaurant expenses, and so on. So those are examples of living expenses. In terms of expenses, we still have transportation, recreation, medical expenditure, insurance expenditures, all these, as well as other forms of expenditures such as childcare, education expenditure, and so on and so forth. So by the time you add all these expenditures together, you're going to get this. So at the end of the day, for you to be able to have the amount that is available for you to either save or invest or do both, you have to subtract your total expenditure from your total income. All right, income available for savings minus the expenditure, and that is what it's going to give you the total that will be available for you to save or invest, or save and invest. Using ratios. Ratios are more or less like financial thermometers. They give you a bigger picture. You use value to compare, or you compare values. So financial ratios allow you to analyze raw data. You are able to look at it, and then you look at you get a raw data in the balance sheet or income statement, and then use it to you compare both. All right, you compare it to what you have actually targeted. They help you to understand how you are managing your financial resources. All right, because you have to track record, you have to take records of your income, you have to take record of your expenditure, you have to take record of your assets, you have to take record of your liabilities. So basically, by the time you now compare these values, you're going to get a bigger picture of how you are faring financially. So it's a relative magnitude of two numerical values taken from the balance sheet or the income statement. By the time you take these two, you compare, you make a comparison of this values for you to be able to determine your stand financially. So do I have enough liquidity to meet emergencies? These are some of the questions that financial ratios will help you find answers to. So if you want to know if you have enough liquidity to meet emergency, you can basically do that by calculating using what we call the current ratio. For you to be able to determine your current ratio, all you need to do is to divide your monetary assets by your current liabilities. Don't forget that we'll discuss about assets and liabilities. So I'm still going to take some examples, I think, in subsequent classes. So this should be greater than 1.0 for you to be well off. All right, this current ratio should be greater than 1. Most times we need to aim for 2 and above for you to have a good standing. So your month living expenses covered ratio, that's another ratio, is calculated by getting all your monetary assets and dividing it by your annual living expenditure over 12. All right, so this should aim for like 3 to 6 months of your liquid assets, and should be less if enough credit and insurance is taken care of. Another questions that can be answered using your financial ratio is whether or not you can meet your debt obligations, and by that you want to see your debt ratio. All right, that's another financial ratio, your debt ratio. By doing this, you calculate you find your total debt or your total liability, and you divide it by your total assets. So liability divided by assets is going to give you your debt ratio. This should decrease as you get older, right? Because it is expected that your liability should continue to reduce. For example, maybe your loan payment or something, by the time you do it consistently over time, should reduce over time. And once it reduces, then the value of the debt ratio reduces. So this should decrease as you get older. Your long-term debt coverage ratio also can be used, and this is done by dividing your total income available for living expenses by your total long-term debt payment. If at the end of the day you calculate this and the value you get is less than 2.5, that is a pointer to a red flag that you are not doing well financially. All right. The next one is, am I saving as much as I think I am? If you really want to answer this question, then you have to learn how to calculate your savings ratio. In relation to this question, we'll be talking about savings ratio, and your savings ratio is calculated by getting all the income available for savings and investment, and then you divide it by the income available for living expenditure. All right, so this is the third ratio now, the savings ratio. So income available for savings divided by income available for living expenditure. So it's effective saving is by paying yourself first. You should note that. All right, you should know that for you to have an effective saving, the first thing to do is to set aside a certain amount for yourself, which might imply that you are paying yourself first, regardless of whatever circumstance you find yourself. Record keeping. We've talked about the fact that all these values are very, very important, and for you to be able to achieve them, you need to keep good record. You need to be good at record. You need at record keeping. You need to be faithful to record keeping. So without record, it's difficult to prepare taxes, and not even only taxes, all other things that we've been talking about, both your balance sheet, your income statement, and so on. So you really need to take good record of both income, asset, liabilities, and so on. So you track expenses and how much and where you are spending, even to the last unit of money, whether it's dollars or cents, kobo, naira, depending on the currency you're spending. So you really need to take the record to the last. It's easier for someone to step in during an emergency and understand your financial situation if at all there is need to seek for help or assistance. All right. So when you know your financial status or your health status, then it's easier for someone to help you by the time you have a good record of all these things. So you'll be able to determine, okay, like how soon you want to pay back your debt and so on and so forth. So record keeping is very, very important, and there is no way you can talk about your financial health status without knowing or without being faithful to record keeping. So these are the steps in taking your record. The first is to track your financial dealings. You need to take a good track of your financial dealings. Your credit card and expenditures need to be checked. These are forms of easy things to track. All right, but your cash expenditures are more likely to be difficult to track because they are just very easy. Bring out your cash from your wallet or whatever, you spend it, and that's all. Except for instances whereby you even collect and receipt for whatever you buy. For some that you didn't even bother to collect receipts, or maybe receipts are not available, they are very, very difficult to track. So you really need to be self-disciplined. You need to discipline yourself so that you'll be able to track all these record to the last. All right, file and store your financial records so they are readily accessible. So even if you are not doing it immediately, even if you are not taking the record immediately, try as much as possible to get a file. Maybe you want to keep your receipts over a period of time so that when you are ready to now sit down and do whatever calculation you need to do, you have access to all those information or data as readily as possible. So you have them at your access. web-based financial planning with Mint and Level Money. Mint, if you visit mint.com, you find the application there or the website. So depending on the device that you are using, it's the best way to manage your money. It tracks, it gives you a track record of all your dealings. All right. It's free. You can easily download it. It's recommended by the Wall Street Journal, Business Week. So it's an award-winning, top-rated online financial service by PC World. It's extremely easy to use and so on and so forth. So there are so many things you can do with this on mint.com. You can visit. So you view all your accounts together at the same time, okay, from checking and saving to credit card and so on and so forth. So all this, it helps you to keep your record basically. So you can just visit the site mint.com. Mint automatically pulls in and categorizes your transactions daily. You categorize your transactions daily. You only need to enter your cash transactions. All other transactions are automatically entered because you know most times they are usually online except they are cash transaction. So once you are faithful to entering your cash transaction by yourself manually, the other ones will be easy because they are automatically being recorded by this particular site. So you can visit this. You can visit the site to read more and know more about how it works. So these are more about the mint.com. Then what you can do with the level of money is extremely simple. Automatically updates, like I told you before. It automatically tracks your spending history. It reinforces positive habits. All right. Once you know that you are giving, you are tracking your spending, your expenditure very well, then it helps you to form positive habits. It calculates your total income, recurring bills, how much you want to save every month, and so on and so forth. So all this is going to give you a bigger picture and actually make your tax easy in terms of record keeping of both your income as well as your expenditure. So it's highly recommended. Putting it all together, that's budgeting. Okay, this can be done by evaluating your financial health status. Budgeting helps you to evaluate your financial health status by using the balance sheet and income statement. So what do you use this for? You use them to set your financial goals. What do you aim to achieve at the end of the day? And then you use them to achieve your financial goal. The first is to set, the second is to achieve. So those are the two when it comes to important factors when it comes to evaluating your financial health using the balance sheet. It develops a plan of action and cash budget using the income statement. It also helps you develop a plan of action. Then you monitor your progress using the balance sheet as well as the income statement. You monitor, maybe you want to compare last year with this year or the previous few years with maybe the current year. So all these things are what you can do using your planning on your budgeting. All right. Developing a cash budget. How do you develop a cash budget? You plan for controlling cash inflows and outflow. All right, your cash budget involves taking record of both your income, your cash inflow, more or less like your income, as well as the outflow, how you spend the money. The money coming into your wallet is your income, while the one moving out of it is your outflow. Right. So you allocate dollar or whatever currency amount for different spending categories. So you allocate whatever amount you want to spend on different categories of your expenditure, on your bills, on your whatever you want to spend it on. Preparing a cash budget. How do you prepare a cash budget, or what are the necessary steps in preparing a cash budget? You start by estimating anticipated after-tax income, right? And then you take home pay. Your income or your take home pay. You estimate it from most recent annual personal income statement. You know how much you are owing, how much you are earning, or how much you earned last, the last time or the last year. So you can use that to anticipate your after-tax income, and then you estimate the fixed and the variable expenses for the, both the the living fixed and variable expenses. We'll talk about the fixed ones as well as the variable ones, those that vary with the level of maybe usage. All right, while some are fixed, whether or not you even use them, you have to pay for them. So you estimate income available for saving and investing. You subtract estimated living expenditure from anticipated take home pay. All this we have done in the previous slide, like at the beginning of the classes, how you can find your net worth, all right, using the balance sheet as well as the income statement. Implementing the cash budget. How do you implement? We'll talk about the cash budget. So how do you now implement it? You have to put it in place for a month. Okay, follow it religiously, even though there might be little deviations. Try as much as possible to be disciplined to follow it religiously. Then you compare the actual expenditure in each category with the budget amount at the end of the month. Okay, you've budgeted that, okay, for this month I've budgeted maybe $1,000 for feeding. So you have different categories: food, drinks, fruit, vegetables, and so on and so forth. So you try to follow it, but at the end of the day, there might be some variances, which is still okay, but you try as much as possible to follow what you have budgeted for. All right, so at the end of the day, you now compare your actual expenditure at the end of the month with what you have budgeted for. Now you evaluate whether you change budget estimate or a certain self-control. By the time you try to identify where the issue is, then you can now decide, do you want to change your budget maybe for the next month? Maybe you spent more than you estimated. It could be due to inflation, not necessarily your own fault or something like that. It could be due to inflation or rising prices. So with that, you might need to maybe increase or change your budget for the next month. But if there is nothing of such, like maybe inflation or something, or it could be maybe if it's due to your own let's say lackadaisical attitude, or maybe your own fault, or you just wanted to satisfy yourself or things like that, then you really to exercise some self-restraint in the following month, so that you can work in line with your budget to be able to achieve your plans. So you stick to your desired budget for a month with an envelope system. So all these are the forms or ways in which you can implement the cash budget. You can do that on a monthly basis and see how well it progresses. Hiring a professional. So this comes, it comes to the issue of hiring a professional depending on what you feel. Do you think it's better for you to hire a professional to handle this, your financial health for you or your financial status? It depends on so many factors. So you go it alone and have your plan checked by a professional. That is one way. There's the options that you have while working with a professional. You can do it all alone and then you just have a professional to check it for you, or you work with a professional to develop a plan from the scratch. You can get the service of a professional to get these things done together with you, or you can leave it all for the professional to plan for you. You might want to get the service of a professional to do everything from A to Z for you. So these are the choices that you have when it comes to hiring a financial professional. So what do they do? What do financial planners do? There are more unique and financial situations that need a financial or professional help, not just limited to maybe income statement or whatever. They advise you, they give advice, okay? And then you still need to know the basic and still bear ultimate responsibility for your financial well-being. So whether they advise you or not, whether they help you prepare your document, budget, income statement, whatever or not, the onus is still on you. You see, the bulk of the task is still on you, or the responsibility, the bulk of the responsibility is still on you to take ultimate charge and take responsibility for whatever financial activities that you engage in. Choosing a professional planner, there are different things you can look out for. All right, one is the accreditation. You want to check the CVs of these professionals, whether they have some accreditations such as personal financial specialist, certified financial planners, or chartered financial consultants. Depending on the region, at times there are many other professional bodies. So before hiring a professional planner, you may want to look out for all these accreditations if they have. And then you might want to check their experience, their years of experience. Of course, it's going to help a lot. And at times you get them through referrals. There are times that maybe friends, families, or colleagues might have been using the service of certain professional, and they want to, or they may refer you to them or them to you for financial assistance, or for professional assistance, so to say. How are they paid? Some are free only planners, some are fee and commission planners. Some are offset planners, fee offset planners, and some are commission based planners. So it depends on, some are fee only, you pay the fee and then they do the job. Some are fee and commission, you pay the fee and at times you still pay commission. Some are fee offset, you offset, and then some work based on the commission. Maybe as you seek their professional help, then a certain commission is being collected by them. So these are some of the ways in which the financial planners are paid. So so far so good. These are the things, or the summary of the things that we've learned today. How to use a balance sheet to determine your level of wealth, that's your financial health. We've used an income statement to understand where your money comes from, that's the income, and where it goes, that's your expenditure, to be able to save enough. We've used our financial ratios as targets or standards in managing your financial resources. Apart from that, we've also talked about a sound record keeping system, which makes preparation and tracking of your spending easier. And we've also mentioned the fact that you can use a budget to plan and evaluate your spending and saving. And then lastly, we just concluded talking about financial planners and how they can help you in developing a good plan. On this note, we've come to the end of our discussion for today. Hope to see you again in the next class. Before then, please do take care of yourself and stay safe. Bye.